Hey guys, this is AwesomeJohn22 coming today with some more reviews. I want to apologize for not getting any reviews done earlier this week, but as you can probably tell from my still pretty crappy voice, I have had an awful cold recently, and it just didn't quite pan out to be possible to do a lot of talking. It's still actually pretty rough for me, but I feel like I have to get something out to you guys, so here we go. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be getting at least 2 reviews recorded today. They will go up within the next couple days, and then next week we will do the reviews that I had slated for next week, of course. And today we are taking a look at not 1 but 2 figures, technically, because they are similar enough that I could take a look at them without having to focus on the transformation of the second figure, and therefore save a little bit of time. And that is 2 versions of the new Combiner Wars Leader Class Megatron mold. And guys, they're pretty freaking amazing. And I'm going to take a look at why. So, first of all, as we all know, I do not take a look at these guys in their robot modes. So let's go ahead and get them transformed and take a look at some of the details of those modes. As you can see, we've got some very thematically different looking Megatrons here. We have our silver friend over here, who is very clearly supposed to be some sort of homage to the G1 figure slash character, as well as the action figure version of the Megatron currently being featured in the IDW comic books. Over here we have an homage to the Armada Megatron, which is probably one of the few really genuinely good figures out of the Armada toy line. And because we do have an homage to Armada Megatron here, you can see the mold features multiple ports for Minicons. So if you happen to have a Minicon on hand, you can attach them. They don't activate any features, but the option is there, and it's pretty freaking nice. They are, of course, both tanks. On our G1 inspired friend, who we will take a look at first, we have not gray plastic, not silverized plastic, but actual silver paint. Because you can see here on the Minicon port, that is the actual color of the plastic, and the plastic is painted over that color with this fantastic silver, and it's just great. Let me zoom in a little bit. You could just see the light glimmering off of that. It's just amazing. I love it. And you've got red paint up there. You got a nice Decepticon symbol there. And despite the fact that the top of the tank is made from the 2 arms, because of the way it works out in the transformation, you can actually still turn the gun turret, and the gun turret is quite long. Looks very, very nice. Bringing it up here next to another figure you can see here is Classics Optimus Prime, who is about a standard Voyager class length and actually quite dirty again. I need to dust him. You can see actually not a bad size next to Leader Class Megatron here. Very cool scale. I like it a lot. We're going to talk a lot about scale regarding these guys, but this looks great. I'm a huge fan of it. Taking him away again, we can see, got dust on my table, we can see there's not a huge number of differences between these 2 vehicles. They both have these extra weapons on the top. Armada Megatron is, of course, a different color. You can see he has his Autobot symbol in a different place, and he has this yellow arrow here that carries over from the old Armada design, and this really cool metallic green-blue makes up these panels here, as well as the color of his gun. Very cool. And silver here on these bits, where on the other figure they're just gray plastic, and some purple kind of poking through the way the red pokes through on our G1 inspired friend over there. And I really like the deco on this guy. I really like it a lot. Both figures do actually have working treads, which I just find fantastic. And they actually roll on them fairly well. You have to apply a little bit of downward force, but it works. And yeah, I think they both look great. I mean, we never got a version of G1 Megatron that was a tank. The closest we got was G2 Megatron, and he didn't have a design similar enough to the actual on-screen character model to really be the same character as far as I'm concerned, but I still think this works. I think it works really great, and there's so many things I have to say about that figure. I just can't wait. So let's go ahead and jump right into the transformation so I can get closer to a point where I can talk about those things. We're going to use this figure as the example. First we're going to pop these weapons off, and they do combine together. Make a kind of rifle, which is pretty nifty. First what we're going to do, what I like to do, is come here, come to the bottom, you can see his head there, and take these pieces and just kind of work them out like so. And do that on both sides. And then come back here to what will be the front of the robot. Just straighten them up, kind of lifting this panel up out of the way. And then fold these down to make his feet. Next what we're going to do, bring the camera up, come up here. First let's bring these panels back, like so. And then we will split these sections and just kind of splay this open. And you can see, whoops, underneath here, there is this turntable underneath. It's this turntable here that allows the turret on the top of the tank to actually turn in vehicle mode. It's pretty nifty. I wish I could show it off, but there's really no way to go about it. Next what we're going to do is we're going to take this panel here, make a crotch plate out of it, and then take this panel here, fold it down, and it has 2 tabs that will peg in there. And there we go. Next we're going to come up top, rotate his head around, and then come to the back, squeeze these panels together and lower them. And they actually do tab together. There's a couple of tabs there. Just kind of hold them together like that. And then take his weapon and collapse it down, which is pretty nifty. There's a button right there that is still visible in this collapsed form due to this cutout here. And you can have his gun like this, so it has this larger barrel pointing forward, but I don't particularly like that, so I rotate it around and then take these arm panels, pop them up on both sides, and the gun being on this arm makes it slightly more difficult, but eventually it works. Then to free up articulation, I like to raise the gun up just slightly. That allows you to bend the arm. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much Megatron in his robot mode. And you can see it takes quite a lot of cues from the G1 character model, as I mentioned before. He does have this extra gun. I'm not a huge fan of Megatron holding guns in his hands, at least not G1 inspired Megatrons, but thankfully you can come over here, plug the gun into his arm, and now it looks kind of like an extension of his cannon, which is really nice. He looks like he could really mess you up with this thing. It just looks really fantastic in my opinion. Articulation is really great. We've had this bit kind of folded up all the way, but yeah, these do move to allow great outward hip movement. He does have full upward movement at the shoulder, as well as pop loose, as well as a full 360 degree rotation above the shoulder, or above the elbow, and bend at the elbow, forward and back at the hips, rotation at the hips, 90 degree, well, almost 90 degree bend at the knees, rotation in the fists, which is pretty nice. He even, surprisingly, has rotation at the waist, which actually makes it kind of difficult to transform him sometimes, because sometimes this looks lined up when it's not, really. And of course, being a leader class figure, there's absolutely no excuse for him not to have a full range of motion in the head. And so, yeah, I mean, his shoulders are a bit awkward looking. You can see they have a weird shape to them, but they still offer full range of motion, and I think look pretty good overall. And there's really not much more to say about it. It's unorthodox in a lot of ways. Trying to get him standing up a little bit straighter. It's unorthodox in a lot of different ways, but I think it works out great. And he just looks great. As far as differences in transformation go, there aren't a lot. For Armada Megatron, you leave these back sections up like so to replicate his high shoulders in robot mode. And what I like to do is I like to take his weapon and rotate it like so, then rotate his arm and kind of have him straddle the weapon at his side to replicate his underslung cannon as we saw in the series. And I don't mind taking his gun, his extra gun, as I drop it, and positioning it in his hand, because this is not G1 Arm Cannon Megatron. This is Armada Megatron. He's a different character, so I don't mind him looking a little different. Side by side, you can see that there are clearly several differences between these two figures. The G1 inspired Megatron is clearly a lot more silver, with a lot of red and black poking through into this mode, whereas Armada Megatron has a predominantly green and purple color scheme with some extra silver and black and orange poking through into the robot mode. They have very different head sculpts. On the G1 inspired Megatron, we have the classic bucket head, whereas on Armada Megatron we have a admittedly slightly too small head, really, with the standard Armada Megatron grippy claw ears sticking up pretty high. And if we can get in position, both head sculpts are really, really nice. We can see that the face on Armada Megatron definitely screams Armada Megatron, and the face on our G1 inspired Megatron is just classic Megatron through and through. As I finally get my camera pointed at it properly with the big red optics and the bucket head and the strong jawline, it screams that character, and I really, really love it. They have Decepticon symbols rather, and Freudian slip regarding a detail I'm going to bring up later. They have Decepticon symbols, but they're in different places. You have one on G1 Megatron's chest, whereas they are on the shoulders of Armada Megatron. And the point being that these are the same mold. But between the differences in deco and the differences in transformation, you have to actually look to see that. Putting them side by side, you can really see the similarities. But if you take G1 Megatron away and just look at Armada Megatron himself, he looks like an updated Armada Megatron, and I just think it's great. Regarding the aforementioned Freudian slip, I don't have them anymore because, me being me, I lost them already. But this Megatron does in fact come with an Autobot symbol sticker to replace his Decepticon logo, because you may or may not know this, but in the IDW comics, Megatron does actually join the Autobots. And I'm not too sure how I feel about that particular plot point, but the fact that they included a roleplay option with the toy, I think is just a fantastic idea. Not going to be doing it myself because the sticker is kind of crappy, but it was cool nonetheless. From this point forward, we will be looking at size comparisons, so I'll be using just G1 Megatron here as the example. Now this guy is quite tall, and he looks quite good from the pictures I've seen anyway, next to Masterpiece figures. Sadly, I don't have any Masterpiece figures on hand. The only Masterpiece figure I own is Masterpiece Skywarp, and he's packed away somewhere. So I can't do any Masterpiece size comparisons, but there is one thing that people are saying about this figure that I just don't agree with, and that's that he doesn't fit in scale with Classics figures. Now, there is the issue of Classics Optimus Prime. He is quite short next to this guy. But we don't have to use Classics Optimus Prime for Optimus Prime. As I've mentioned previously in my Versus review, of Classics Optimus Prime and Combiner Wars Optimus Prime, who has actually replaced Classics Optimus Prime on my Classics Autobot shelf. As you can see, he is actually quite a good size next to Megatron. He's a bit shorter, but I don't mind my Optimus Prime being shorter than my Megatron. I just don't want him being, like, yay high next to him. He has to still have a decent enough size next to him to appear to fill the role of Megatron's rough equivalent. But I don't mind him being this much shorter. I think it actually looks quite good. I quite enjoy it. For a further example, here we have him next to another slightly taller than average Voyager class figure from the Classics line, the Classics Inferno mold, represented here by, I believe his name is Hoist. A pretty cool figure, one that I don't typically display with my other characters because I like his vehicle mode a bit better than his robot mode. His face sculpt kind of bugs me. But you can see, he comes up about to Megatron's chest, which is a pretty good size. I would say a minor character next to Megatron. Decent scale. I like it a lot. So I can see why some people prefer this guy to sit with larger figures, especially a larger version of Optimus Prime, such as the MP10 Masterpiece Optimus Prime. I certainly don't see an issue standing this guy next to my Classics/Universe/Generations Decepticons and calling him my new Classics Megatron. Because I did a whole Megatron week and a half-ish miniseries talking about all the Megatrons in my collection, and if you recall, I talked about how I like Classics Megatron, but I feel he could have been so much better, that his design could have been so much more. And eventually he ended up losing out that competition week to Leader Class Transformers Animated Megatron, and let me tell you, this guy is just as good as that figure, if not a little bit better. So yeah, this is my new Classics Megatron, and if I ever do pick up an MP10 Optimus Prime, I'll probably actually go so far as to buy a second version of this figure to set next to it, because he's my masterpiece Megatron too. This guy, he just blows so many other modern figures right out of the water, and I absolutely adore him. In fact, I absolutely adore both these figures, and I think that there are enough differences between them to warrant recommending picking both of them up. But that is pretty much it for this episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, because I certainly enjoyed making it, despite the fact that I'm a little out of breath here. But yeah, if you did enjoy it, or if you didn't, help me out. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you feel so inclined. In the description down below, you'll find links to a bunch of the other things I'm working on, including my collections video, which really will be updated soon, I promise. I'm getting to it later today. Check those out. Check that out. If you see anything in it that you'd like me to review, it, let me know and I will see what I can do. This has been Awesome John 22, and I will talk to you guys later.